the next few weeks. Now, Shell Oil Company has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on security in Nigeria. That's according to internal Shell documents leaked to the London oil watchdog group Platform. Now, most of the money is being spent in the country's highly volatile Niger Delta region. Between 2007 and 2009, Shell spent nearly 40%, that's $383 million, on its total security expenditure here. A year later, $65 million was spent on Nigerian government forces and $75 million on other security costs. Well, for more, let's talk to Ben Amunwa, who is a researcher with Platform. That's the organisation which obtained the documents. Ben, thanks very much for joining us. I know that the documents were leaked to you by a former Shell manager. Do they say who exactly the money is going to?
Well, what the documents suggest is that, and our interview with the source of the information confirms, is that Shell has spent enormous amounts of money on government security forces in the Niger Delta. And what this actually means, really, is the military and the police. The mobile police in the Niger Delta region are known locally as the Kill and Go police. They have a well-established record of committing gross human rights violations against local residents in that region. However, I think another interesting detail to the leaked data, which is all readily accessible on the platformlondon.org website, is that some of Shell's expenditure, in fact, around about 37% of Shell's security spending in 2008 globally went to other costs. Now, I asked the source of this information what other meant in Nigeria, and he was unable to say, because when he inquired about this, couldn't get any information. There was such a wall of internal secrecy around these payments that suggests that these payments were actually going towards questionable purposes. And in our briefing,
but can I ask you this? I mean, clearly this is a very, very dangerous area. Shell has suffered dozens and dozens of kidnappings of its employees. 3 of its employees were killed in 2008. Why shouldn't Shell spend its own money protecting its own people?
Well, I have every sympathy with the relatives of anyone who's killed as a result of the conflict in the Niger Delta, and you are right in the sense that the Niger Delta has been a volatile region. An estimated 1,000 people were killed per year during this conflict. However, one has to ask, why is the Niger Delta so dangerous? The answer is, in part, that it is payments like this made by Shell, Chevron and other oil companies routinely, not only to government security forces but also to armed militant groups, that has fueled the conflict. The human rights abuses committed by the Joint Task Force in the Niger Delta region, which are again well documented, complete destructions of villages and communities, have been often facilitated by payments, transportation and logistical support provided by oil multinationals such as Shell. They cannot wash their hands of responsibility here because they play an important and active role in the conflict dynamics in the Delta.
But do you have evidence that Shell is giving money to armed militia groups as opposed to bona fide security forces?
In our report, Counting the Cost, published last year, we uncovered through investigation and interviews with current Shell managers that Shell had awarded contracts to groups that are credibly linked to armed militants in the town of Rumuekpe, which was completely destroyed by the resulting conflict. And this happens on a routine basis. It's not only Platform's research which has confirmed this. Independent investigations by Amnesty International, the Financial Times and others have also confirmed that it's routine for oil companies to pay whoever they need to operate. And frequently this money ends up in the hands of human rights abusers. What this leak shows is just the sheer scale, the vastness of the financial relationships between Shell on the one hand and human rights abusers in Nigeria on the other.
Okay, well we have got a statement from Shell which I will be reading out in just a moment, but it's suffice to say Shell denies having any direct control over government forces. It says it investigates any grievances that come up as far as human rights abuses are concerned. What do you say to that?
Well, we're not saying that Shell controls the armed forces in Nigeria. That would not be reflective of the reality. They don't need to control the forces to actually facilitate and involve themselves in human rights abuse. And in fact, Shell has tried to provide training for government security forces, but it has not been successful at limiting and stopping human rights abuses to occur. What needs to happen is a more fundamental shift in the relationship between the government forces and also our militant groups and the companies. They have to disclose their payments. They have to stop transactions where they know that those transactions could lead to the risk of human rights abuses. These are all basic due diligence norms which any company that respects human rights and has a respectable reputation on this issue should be following.
Ben, thanks very much indeed for that. Ben Amunwa from Platform, the oil watchdog based in London. Well, of course, we did contact Shell International for its response. It told Al Jazeera